In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Sirius XM Channel 158. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We are live in downtown Las Vegas at the home of the world's largest sportsbook, Circa Resort and Casino. Lots to get to over the course of the next 2 hours as we're holding it down here. And we've got a lot of live action as we enter the show today, JVT. We have 5 Major League Baseball games that are already underway and the PGA Championship. Day 1, top of your leaderboard here real quickly. We've got a 4-way tie as of now at 3 under in the first round with Aldrich Potgieter, Steven Yeager, Minwoo Lee, and Ryo Hisatsune.
Yes, indeed. And in baseball, we already have some high scores early on here. Reds looking for revenge after an extra innings loss last night are up 6-0 over the Washington Nationals. Pirates have already hung 6 in the bottom of the 4th against the Rockies. Tigers, all of the teams looking for revenge here today in the early going, maybe on the way to exacting said revenge, up 3-1 over the Mets in the middle of the 4th inning there, and then just getting started. The bottom of the 1st in both Marlins Twins, Padres Brewers, but don't look now. Both teams working with something, including the Twins, with the bases loaded with 2 outs.
And not quite started just yet, but a game that's going to begin here in a few minutes. We have the Mariners and Astros going head-to-head. Game 3 of this set split to this point. Luis Castillo going for Seattle, Mike Burrows for the home Astros. Seattle around a -120 favorite in this spot. Run total sitting 9. Anything that stands out to you?
I mean, the fact that the total is as high as it is, you could expect that maybe we're going to get some fireworks here. Luis Castillo has not pitched particularly well, and even if you look at his metrics and the room for regression, it is regressing from an abhorrent pitcher to a below-average pitcher. 6.57 ERA, a 4.54 fielding independent, has had some real trouble keeping the ball in the park so far, and his command has gotten worse this year. And on the other side, you have Burrows, who's been exactly what you've seen. Now, not a lot of bad contact numbers, so his expected ERA would maybe point to over 44 2/3. He's been a little unlucky, but neither guy really working with anything that you want to run to the table with here. I'd lean a little bit, though, toward Houston, only in the sense of I do really like their lineup, and if Castillo is going to continue to hang these over the plate and get got at home with the Astros and how strong this group can be on offense, can make some sense that, one, they should maybe be a slight favorite here, and some spots are in that direction, but also that they can have some offensive success.
Maybe carry over a little positive juju from the extra innings win they had yesterday to finally stop the bleeding of that 4-game losing streak. So we'll keep tabs on that all as we go. Nice to have a little live action, live sweat on our TVs as we get set here. But let's get ready for everything else we have to come here today on the program. Time for the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right, we got some great guests today. Very excited. Beginning in our next segment coming up. We did it, JVT. We got Anna Dua of Sportsnet. Yes, we're going to talk through the Sabres and Habs, but also the snack situation. We need to know more about what this shaved ice mustard thing is going on, if it's real or not.
Yeah, I will, to her face, because I am somebody that prides myself. If I will say it to the microphone, I will say it to the person. I do not believe her. I do not believe that she eats these things. I do not believe that was a real thing. So we'll get to the bottom of that and some of the more pertinent stuff when it comes to the teams that she covers as well.
Yes, in addition to the series that she's covering right now, she's also very well-versed on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and obviously they have a lot going on right now as well. A couple other guests, Dwayne Colucci, going to join us at the top of hour 2, runs the sportsbook over there at the newly dubbed Resort in Summerlin. Get his thoughts on everything behind the counter. And our boy Rob Moreno going to join us in studio today, host of the First Strike podcast with Dave Ross. Get his thoughts on, yes, the UFC event coming up this weekend, but also first time we're going to see MMA on Netflix, and you're very excited for the Ronda Rousey fight.
Very excited is quite the accusation. I'm interested.
You specifically wanted to talk about it.
Well, it's an event, and we have to talk about it in an event, and we have some big stuff in mixed martial arts in general that's happening over the next month or so. So Rob can help us out with that. Not only the MVP, card coming up this weekend, but the Freedom card coming up as well, in the lawn of the White House and more. So very much looking forward to picking Rob's brain. We can do the whole show with Rob, I think, because of so much going on in mixed martial arts, but really excited to get his thoughts on what we're going to see. And watched a bunch of open workouts with, all these fighters just kind of rolling around on a mat and getting ready. So I am looking forward to the MVP clash this weekend.
Okay. We mentioned Montreal and Buffalo Game 5 coming up tonight, but it is an NHL doubleheader in the playoffs, a potential elimination game tonight in the nightcap as the Vegas Golden Knights try to put this thing away in Anaheim. Can they do it, or will the Ducks extend to 7? We will preview that game at length, but we are going to start in the NBA, JVT, because it appears the Cavs have finally cracked the code on the road. They not only win plus 150-ish money line dog in this spot as well, but did so in comeback fashion. They were down as many as 15, down 9 with 4 minutes to go.
So the Pistons have now lost 3 straight. Yep. This is also why, again, a lot of people, I was asked this a ton. I think a lot of people were maybe hoping that I would break here, especially in a series where you're not at home to start. A 2-0 series deficit you're not too worried about because you get 2 games going back home. You do have to eventually win on the road, but you at least have a position to even the series, and then we'll see what happens. Well, Cavs have kind of figured things out, to your point, cracked the code a bit here. Finally had one of those above-average shooting days we've been talking about, shot about 40% from beyond the arc, so that's a good thing. But there's a couple of things you want to point out about this game. But I think there's one you start with that I think would make the Detroit Pistons a little bit worried about how this series is going to go moving forward. And by the way, you ask me right now, I think the Cavaliers close this thing out back at home in Game 6. We can discuss that further a little bit. Tobias Harris yesterday, in the second quarter, had a good little flurry where he hit about 4 straight shots, looked pretty good. Thought maybe you were going to end up getting another big Tobias Harris game. Ends up with 13 points on 6 of 19 shooting, goes 1 of 7 from beyond the arc in 40 minutes played. Over his last 2 games, Tobias Harris has given you 14.5 points on 33% shooting from the floor. What was the one thing we kept talking about with this Pistons team over and over again that was going to be their flaw in the postseason? It was that they didn't have a secondary scorer, perimeter creator, and that was going to be their undoing. Well, Tobias Harris emerged over the course of 8 or 9 games being just that. And so this Pistons team on offense looked a lot more formidable. Well, I don't think it's a surprise that this losing streak has coincided with Tobias Harris somewhat cooling off from the field. I think the other thing that you're worried about here if you're Detroit that Cleveland has somewhat figured out is, Stormy, they do not respect Ausar Thompson as a perimeter threat in terms of his offense. You saw multiple times where Ausar Thompson would catch it in the open space on the wing or whatever it was, and the Cavs would leave him and essentially scram back so you could get the preferred matchup on him so you could put somebody else somewhere else. They do not respect him. They allow him to dribble into traffic. They allow him to take shots if he really wants to, which he has deferred. He has not really done that at all. It has ruined the Pistons spacing. So, look, they're down 3-2, so you kind of want to sound the alarm because you're down 3-2 and you're going on the road if you're the Pistons. They've played extremely well. But the things that you were kind of waiting for to eventually come to fruition in this series, the Cavs shooting, Tobias Harris cooling down, the Cavs figuring out what they want to do defensively, they finally started to happen. And now you've lost 3 straight if you're the Pistons. You got to go on the road and figure out if you can get this win.
With Ausar Thompson, if you are a Pistons fan or a Pistons backer today, are you how frustrated are you, I guess would be the better question, that you didn't get the foul call? I mean,
I think you're frustrated, but that was a foul. Kelly texted me yesterday. He was like, I think that was a foul. I was like, yeah, that's probably a foul. At the end of the day, what I always love is it's playoff basketball. And so people will watch that game and complain about the quality of foul calls. Like, that's soft. You can't do that. And then at the end of a game, something like that will happen. Near incidental contact. Like, well, you got to call that. What's going on? And we'll also say, as a collective, you don't want the officials to determine the outcome of a game.
That's where I was going to go. That's the other option.
And then you'll have that moment where it's like, why didn't they determine the outcome of the game? So we're never happy. In general context, over the course of a regular season, how many times is that called a foul? More often than not, for sure. But either way, you had an opportunity, and in overtime, too. You give up a bucket, you turn the ball over to Max Strus, who subsequently finds Donovan Mitchell for an easy bucket in the lane, and just like that, you're in a 5-point deficit in overtime. Like, it's just, you could have had opportunities to win that game as well. That is very tough, but you've got to figure something out. The Cavs went out there. You've talked about the road struggles. In this game, had an offensive rating of 121.9, shot over 40% from beyond the arc. They've generated, I think, about 14 to 15 wide-open three-point attempts per game against you in this series. You've got to figure out what you want to do now defensively because despite all of that, we can talk about the foul. The Cavs are starting to improve offensively. And by the way, we haven't even mentioned that the Beard has very quietly over this 3-game winning streak kind of turned things around a bit. He was not very good in the first half, but was great in the second half.
Ended up having a playoff best, 30 points last night, 8 rebounds, 6 assists as the Cavs get this done, 117-113, your final in overtime to take that series lead Friday night. So no NBA on your television tonight, but we do have a doubleheader tomorrow with a pair of Game 6s. Spurs-Timberwolves will be the second game of the two. Pistons-Cavs first, where Cleveland is minus 3.5 on that early spread.
And what are we now? 6-0? Straight up and 5-1 against the spread at home so far this year for the Cavaliers in the postseason.
See if they can do it again.
Now, they were winless and had not covered a game yet on the road before last night, so that does not mean that it will be guaranteed that they win at home, but the whole point here being they have played extremely, extremely well. And by the way, I want to point this last point out for the Pistons that I think you're somewhat worried about too. You go look at their bench scoring and the production they got from the guys that did not start for them, and that's where you're also worried because Karis LeVert turned back into a pumpkin. He only gave you 7 points last night in the minutes that he played. The other two impactful pieces off of your bench were Paul Reed and Isaiah Stewart. Again, two front court players. Like you can't have we talked about this yesterday. What was it, like the best third string center ever in Paul Reed coming in and Isaiah Stewart, and that being your production off the bench. It's just you're not in a very good spot right now if you're Detroit.
Total last night also goes over. I mean, it's called overtime, not undertime for a reason. The total for Game 6 coming up, slightly lower than where we closed yesterday, 210.5, 211.5, depending on where you look. We're looking at 209.5 where things sit right now. Also last night, we had overtime on the ice, and the Colorado Avalanche somehow, some way, come all the way back against the Minnesota Wild last night. They were down 3-0 early and 3-1 in the third period. Find a way to win this thing and close out the series. So they will now await the winner of Anaheim in Vegas, which, like I mentioned off the top, could potentially find out who that's going to be tonight. Unbelievable that they were able to do that. And I told you the stat a little bit earlier. Minnesota takes the early lead, completely lets their foot off the gas. Just 7 shots on goal the last 44 minutes of this game.
And by the way, because I texted you, and it seems like they decided to make that switch almost right after. Scott Wedgwood comes in, and I didn't get that benching at all. I know he had 2 bad games, but in the first game against Minnesota, they had given up, I think, 15 high danger chances or whatever it was. It was a ridiculous game. Wedgwood, I think, is the better option. Blackwood looked awful yesterday.
We'll talk more about this game a little bit later on, and there is a soundbite specifically from Jared Bednar after the game talking about kind of the expectations that Colorado has this year. I really want to play, and of course, previewing all of the action tonight, including coming up next with Anna Dua of Sportsnet.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Having Sabres down to a best of 3 starting tonight after Buffalo evened the set on Tuesday. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves. We've seen both teams win on home ice and on the road. As for tonight, Buffalo minus 122 favorites. Slight edge in the series as well, minus 115 according to odds makers. Does Anna Dua agree? Anna, kind enough to give us some time here on a busy game day, host and reporter over at Sportsnet. Joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line, Anna, I am curious your opinion on the series, and we'll get to that. But something tells me just right off the bat, I'm going to like your opinion on the series more than I like your opinion on snacks. This thing has gone viral now with you eating this mustard slushy, mustard and shaved ice combo at the rink. What is this? How did this come to be? And is this real? Is this something you actually eat?
So funny. I did not expect it to blow up as much as it did. It was actually at the ballpark because I'm also part of the Blue Jays broadcast for Sportsnet. So I was at the ballpark and I was doing a hit near this shaved ice stand, and I have the opposite of a sweet tooth. I love savory food. I grew up, did not like chocolate, was never one of those girls. So I was looking at all of the options. I really was craving shaved ice flavors, and none of them were appealing to me. So I just got a cup of shaved ice, and I routinely do eat mustard packets. They're actually really good for you. So if you're a gym person or if you're a runner or if you're an athlete, they're really good for muscle recovery and to help with hydration. So I got into that habit of just using that in terms of working out, and I thought, why not put it on my shaved ice? And I actually did drink the entire mustard slushie. I thought it was delicious. It's not a bit. I will do it again. It is so good. And everyone who hates it hasn't tried it. Like, it's genuinely so good.
I don't believe you. I can't. I can't buy this.
Anna, I told him, I said she's very in shape. I wonder if it's something like, because it's low calorie, if it was something that was regular.
It's good for you, like fitness-wise.
Yeah.
So, but I genuinely ate it because I like the taste of it. That's why I like
trust.
it.
I believe everything up until the marriage of the two items together, right? I believe all of it until you put them together and ate the whole thing. But that's fine. I do believe it. But that is, does it, like, it tasted okay with the cold and the water and everything? Like, I like mustard too, but those two things together just doesn't compute.
It was delicious. I feel like I could have blended it a little bit better, but I was making it myself in the middle of a game broadcast. If I were to do it again, I would actually put the mustard in the slushy machine from the get-go, so it's evenly distributed.
Electric. And I know you were talking to us off air, and we saw on your social media as well, you were basically handed a gigantic mustard dispenser today as well. So clearly everybody knows about this now and is all in. Let's look toward the game, though, tonight. And obviously Buffalo's able to even the set. Montreal, though, has played some really good hockey in this series as well. Who do you think has the edge tonight?
It's honestly a toss-up, but I would say whoever ends up winning tonight's game, I have a very strong feeling that they close it out in 6. It's interesting when looking ahead to this game because after Game 3 in Montreal, it seemed that the series really tilted heavily in Montreal's favor. That was the most dominant game that was part of this series, and it seemed like Montreal really found what made them such a strong team. But the way Buffalo was able to bounce back in Game 4, not only in terms of getting out the win, but they killed 6 penalties. Their special teams was phenomenal. Their defense played so well. They were really good at playing defensive hockey, blocking shots, figuring out how to address the things that made Montreal successful in Game 3. All of a sudden now Buffalo comes out. My only question about Buffalo is in the first round, Buffalo won most of their games on the road. They only won one game at home in Buffalo. So home ice is a great thing in the playoffs. It didn't seem to benefit the Sabres all too much in round 1. They did win one game here in Buffalo in round 2. I just wonder how they're going to fare with the series shifting back here and whether it's a very electric building, so is the Bell Center, but if there's just those jitters from not having that playoff experience yet, if that comes through a little bit more on home ice, because sometimes with less experience, the home team has more pressure to show up and show out in front of their fans. I just think that if Montreal wins tonight, they close it out in 6 in Montreal. I think if Buffalo wins it tonight, I'm less confident that they close it out in 6, but I would still say 60-40 that the series ends in 6 just because the momentum whoever gets the 3-game lead in this series is going to have, I feel like is just going to carry them through. I don't know if we're going to see a 7 in this one.
Yeah, you got to feel, too, Anna, like if you're in, I don't know how many of you talked to them from Montreal, they have to feel like they're pretty frustrated after the last result. I mean, you mentioned the 7 penalties, 6 of them that were killed. The stupid goal on the power play that bounced off the stanchion, and Dobish has been awesome. If there's a team that comes out of this thinking, no, we're better, we should be able to end this, it is Montreal, right?
It is for sure, but you also don't want to get complacent because there were so many things that Buffalo did really well, and Montreal had massive opportunity on their power play in Game 4 that they weren't able to capitalize on. So you want to figure out what went wrong in those moments and have those key players show up. It's good for them. There's positives for them, too, good that Cole Caulfield's getting on the score sheet. Alex Newhook seems to have Buffalo's number throughout this entire series, and they're kind of figuring out what works. It's just that the Boston Bruins were a solid team, and the Buffalo Sabres were dominant against them in round 1. And this is a team that sticks around and can get out of situations and can get those wins. And it's a very evenly matched up matchup. I think we've talked a lot about this, at least previewing the series that this is the changing of the guard in the Atlantic. You're not seeing the same playoff styles of the Florida teams, the Panthers and the Lightning that we've been so used to seeing. These are both two teams that are filled with a lot of young players that have no playoff experience, that are kind of going through this for the very first time, trying to figure it out. And I guess it's just which one of these young teams figures it out the fastest to help them win the series.
With that in mind, whoever advances out of this series, how do you feel about their general chances against a Carolina Hurricanes team that they have been building up for this moment and this opportunity year after year after year, can never seem to get it done in the Eastern Conference Final? Doesn't this kind of feel, at least on the surface, like it's the Canes to lose whoever they get?
It's so funny because it's either going to be a high or a low for Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals, since, as you mentioned, it's a hump they haven't been able to get over, but the big bad demon of the Florida Panthers is kind of out of their way in terms of the struggles that they've had in making the Stanley Cup playoffs the last couple of years. So it's like, it seems as though the Carolina Hurricanes can breathe a breath of relief right now, but at the same time, they have a lot of time off while they wait to figure out which one of these opponents they face. They don't have that much experience facing either of these teams. Both of these teams are wild card teams in the playoffs. Their system, their preparation is not as easily predictable as we know what Florida Panthers hockey is. We know what Tampa Bay Lightning hockey is. We've seen this core group in playoffs years after years. Have they been able to figure them out? No. But do they know what they're getting? Yes. And now the Hurricanes are just waiting and waiting and waiting. Meanwhile, this series is so energetic. There's so much excitement. There's so much passion and momentum that you wonder if whoever comes out of this series is going to come out of the gate against Carolina kind of carrying that and being like, okay, we're a strong team. We're going to catch them off guard, and this is where this team tends to falter. Maybe the rest they're getting right now, I would be a little nervous. You don't know what you're getting in either one of these two teams, and you're not carrying that same energy since it's been so long since you played your last playoff hockey game. Well, this series could easily go the distance.
We're always looking at Conn Smythe here on this show, other futures that you can see and project forward to. If you're looking at Montreal, I've thrown out Dobish as their most valuable guy to this point. Would you agree with that, or is there another name that you would throw out there?
I do agree, especially with everything Montreal did in their series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That is the player that sticks out for me among the Canadians. It's interesting that we're talking about a Canadians Conn Smythe pick at this point. It would be awesome to see them make a run to the Stanley Cup final just because of how amazing that arena, that fan base is, and how long it's been waiting for it. But Dobish would be my answer for Montreal right now. Goalies rarely seem to eventually come out with that win of that trophy, so we'll see how it happens. But if, Cole Caulfield ends up going on a goal-scoring run from here on out through the Eastern Conference Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, I feel like that award always tends to favor skaters, and I do really want to see a goalie win it.
Anna, you're awesome. Thank you so much for the time today. We really, really appreciate it, and enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Anna Dua, everybody, doing great work over at Sportsnet. You can also follow her on X at Anna Noel Dua. Dobish, by the way, 35-1 right now. Those odds for Conn Smythe, where they sit. I am very curious. So the question that I asked about the Canes, I asked kind of with the thought process of the long layoff in mind. And you always make the comments, the soft Euros thing that Mike Palm brought up last season. So part of that, stop it, it wasn't. Part of that about like the style of play that Carolina does, and they play throughout the course of the regular season. By the time they get to the playoffs, are they worn down a little bit too much? The extended layoffs that they've had throughout the postseason, I wonder if that helps them, or if, to Anna's point, the rust does impact them. Yeah,
that, or, I mean, granted, they have to move on too, but just to the narrative of Carolina finally breaking through, maybe even winning the whole thing. You know, Colorado has seemed maybe a little bit more flawed over the last two games we saw, potentially, too. So, the door is really open if you're going to talk about them achieving this. Of course, you have to get the results that you need, but it does seem like it's coming up, obviously, the best opportunity for Carolina in a long time.
It is fair to call them flawed based on how they've looked at times, but I do also want to make note of the Wild are a really freaking good team, too, and the way that they've made them look is pretty interesting to me.
I mean, my man Wedgwood came in there, got 7 shot attempts on him in the last 40-something minutes. That's crazy.
That's true, too. We have a lot more to get to on the hockey side, which we certainly will, but it's also officially schedule release day in the NFL. Some interesting discussion points, and the leaks are coming out like crazy. More games than we expected to know already next.
watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Tonight begins the NFL team social media content competition to the death. These teams take this so seriously each and every year, which gets me excited as somebody that works in media as well, because it gives us great talking points. Maybe even if we're getting crazy tomorrow, I might rank the best schedule releases if we get something. But I mean, there are teams that are great at it. I feel like the Chargers always get the benefit of the doubt as being the best ones.
Although they've had some good ones, yeah.
Last year, the Minecraft one, that was...
I just didn't connect with you.
Yeah, I'm just not a Minecraft person, so I wasn't that into it.
But it just depends on who you're trying to reach and what your goal is. I mean, I don't know. Cause
I want something funny.
Well, right, but the year that's widely considered to be one of their best social media posts was very anime-themed. And
that one didn't click with me either.
Then which one did you like? Because, I mean...
I didn't say I liked any. I said the Chargers are the ones that are the most widely known as having the best ones.
I mean, I like them. They're pretty good.
We did see a report earlier today from Front Office Sports that the league will not be reviewing or caring about essentially any Vrabel, Rossini things that are thrown into some people's schedule releases. So that was interesting. Like, that wasn't even really top of my radar, but a lot of these teams do kind of, they get in their bag with this stuff. So I'm curious the creativity if we see anything interesting there.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have the bandwidth to go through and watch every single one of these.
I'm going to watch as many as humanly possible for us.
I was going to say, I'm glad that we're prepping for the show properly.
I like this. The Tennessee Titans are like what they did the last couple years was great.
We added a local watering hole later tonight, so maybe while the game is on, I'll flip through some of them and watch them as I sit there and prep for the show. You know what I mean? But I can only watch so many. Some of them are boring, too. Some of them are awful.
And they're too long. So this was my biggest gripe last year, is we got to pare down the time on these things. If you want me to consume them, we are an instant gratification society. We want the quick hitters, social media generation. Like, I do not need 8 minutes for your schedule reveal. No, thank you.
I want the opposite. I want one of these teams.
You want a tiny movie.
No, I want a tiny movie. I want one of these teams to steer into the bit so hard that they release an hour and 45-minute film that subtly releases the schedule throughout the entirety of the movie.
Rein it in. That's all I'm going to say. Rein it in.
Hire a director. Who's the one that's doing the Odyssey? I'm terrible with the directors, but hire a director. Is that
a Christopher Nolan?
Yeah.
Am I making that up? Okay.
Hire Christopher Nolan and direct a film that just subtly releases your schedule next year. You can have that idea for free.
Well, speaking of slowly releasing things, we've seen a lot of these leaks already out, even though the release in its entirety is supposed to come out a little bit later today. We know almost all of the week 1 games at this point. So many of them have been coming out. Mm-hmm. The Giants' entire schedule got leaked at one point.
Is it real?
And again, we don't know if it's fully accurate or not. We'll have to, cross-check that later on today. A couple that we do know now officially, though, the Super Bowl rematch will open up this year's regular season. Patriots at Seahawks. Also, the week 1 primetime games are official. We already mentioned with the international slate that Thursday night football game with the 49ers and Rams in Australia on Netflix. Sunday night will be the Cowboys, who are 2.5-point favorites in New York, taking on the Giants on NBC. And then Monday night football, week 1, Broncos at Chiefs, -2.5 in favor of Kansas City on ESPN. And we brought this up briefly yesterday just because of the questions about Patrick Mahomes and his health early on in the season. ESPN, I don't think, would pick that game for Monday night if they weren't fairly confident and believing and hoping that Patrick Mahomes was going to be starting that game, no?
Yeah. I don't think so either, or at least the hope is pushing it back to Monday Night Football that, given the extended time, that maybe that you're going to have him available here. So that I would expect is the thought, is that they're going to be able to have Patrick Mahomes ready to go. But look, Andy Reid is, I don't know if you know this, a very good offensive mind. I don't think that it would be the craziest thing in the world that you roll with Justin Fields. But this is why the schedule release to an extent is important. And Mitch and I talked about this last week on Pod to the Futures before we found out any about this, which is the order of the schedule does matter, because if the the Chiefs, had opened up their schedule with a somewhat easy slate of games, then I think if you're the Chiefs, you can convince yourself that, we can make this do with just Justin Fields. But since you're opening it with the Broncos, and then we'll see what happens week 2 and week 3, there's probably more of an emphasis on, all right, let's see if we can get Mahomes and Patrick back and ready to go as soon as possible, because our schedule opening up with a division opponent who many believe could be a winner of that division, much like they were last year, that could be an issue for us, and we don't want to be behind the 8 ball to start the year.
Divisionally, that's always what I look for most when we get the schedule release coming out, is which teams are front-loaded with the division versus back-loaded with the division. I think it was the Chargers last year who had a lot of early AFC West games. So the holidays are all coming out pretty quickly here. Netflix revealed the first Thanksgiving Eve game is going to be the Green Bay Packers in SoFi Stadium taking on the Rams. LA, 3.5-point favorites on that early line put out by DraftKings, total 49.5. Netflix is going to have a handful of games this year, so they'll have Thanksgiving Eve, 2 Christmas Day games, a Week 18 game, and they're also going to host NFL Honors this year. Then the next day, the Thanksgiving triple header on CBS, Fox, and NBC. Bears at Lions, Detroit -2.5. Cowboys hosting the Eagles are 1.5-point favorites at home. And then Bills and Chiefs, I don't believe this has been officially confirmed because I didn't see a spread out for that, but I think it was Jordan Schultz who I saw put it out, NFL Insider. So I believe it. Chiefs at Bills on NBC in the nightcap for Thanksgiving.
Confront you at a Starbucks if you don't.
We also have the Black Friday game, Broncos at Steelers on Amazon. And I bring up all of the Thanksgiving games here relatively early in our conversation because for those of us here at Circa who are very involved with the Circa Survivor contest, love to do it each and every year, Thanksgiving has been the 2-week, right? And you have to have it separated, those early Thanksgiving games compared to the Sunday games, which makes it that much harder. And you have to think about teams that you're going to save on the holidays. Well, Mike Palm, VP of Operations here at Circa, was asked about it earlier this morning on VSiN by the Books by our own Jensen Lewis, saying, look at this slate of teams. This is going to be really, really hard to have to save all of these teams. Take a listen to what Mr. Palm had to say.
Well, you're making a big assumption that there's going to be 5 games in that window, and we won't know until Tuesday when Derek and I are with Mitch and Paul. I think it's going to be at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. I know Derek's normal slot is 6:30, 3:30, but I think we're going to move it up to 2 o'clock on Tuesday with Mitch and Paul, and you'll find out. But don't be so sure that there's going to be all 5 of those games in the window.
So there will be a record-breaking guarantee. We do know that.
Yeah.
But I found that at least somewhat interesting. Is there potential maybe that Black Friday game slips as a part of your Sunday selections? Or I don't know. That was an interesting tease for the show on Follow the Money coming up.
Oh, he could also just be lying. That is going to be part of it, too. So we don't know.
Wouldn't put it past you.
We'll have him on tomorrow, I think, so we can maybe grill him a little bit more on this. But yeah, I guess it would make some sense when you have such big names and all these teams and whatnot that you would maybe want to adjust if you're Circa on some of the rules to, or at least how you're going to portion that week up to make it somewhat easier for some of your entrants or all of your entrants to have some teams that are going to be available in that time. That's always been the challenge regardless. And now with so many of these now entering the space, you would think, look at this realistically.
So again, those Thanksgiving week games, Packers, Rams, Bears, Lions, Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, Broncos, Steelers. That's a lot.
It is. I mean, the Steelers, you don't need to say the Steelers. You're never going to use them.
No, you would say you don't need to say the Broncos.
No, I mean, that just, might be a little overvalued. I don't know.
The Christmas Eve and Christmas Day games leaked as well. Christmas Eve looking like Texans at Eagles. Christmas Day, triple header, Packers at Bears, Bills at Broncos, Rams at Seahawks. Sorry, NBA fans, the NFL has taken over your holiday completely now.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
It feels that way.
I don't know. Last Christmas, I remember watching some garbage games. So
okay,
including the who started for the Vikings? Watched it at your place. It was a terrible game. The Vikings-Lions game.
Who did start?
I can't see. You can't even remember. I was going to say Oladokin, but that, of course, was the Kansas City Chiefs. But either way, you're right. More people are going to watch the National Football League, of course, on Christmas. I also hope the broadcasts for the NFL are a little bit better. That game specifically that we're talking about, it was just so busy.
Brosmer,
thank you. It was just so busy. Like at one point I looked up and it was Chris Carter with a dog on Zoom talking about something. I don't know. Like we don't need so much. We can just put the football on.
Yeah, so that was the thing. And this is kind of a little bit of a gripe I have with any of these new broadcasts or alternate casts is they try to do too much too fast and force things on us that we as people that I think are rather traditionalists when it comes to just how you want to consume a football game. It's like a little bit much, no?
Yes, indeed. And that game, too, the two teams averaging 3.6 and 3.2 yards per play, respectively. And Brosmer ended up throwing for 51 yards on 9 completions. So right back to the 1960s. That was a great game.
New Year's Eve, lone game on that Thursday in the NFL. Bengals at Ravens, obviously competing with the college football playoff as well, whatever that will be. Reminder, though, as all of these spreads become available, we'll have some early thoughts, potential early bets to be made over at VSiN.com. Plenty of articles coming out as we look through the schedule and season win totals, juice that might change. If you head over to VSiN.com/subscribe, we've got a special deal going on right now. When you use our promo code PRO, you not only get the annual subscription for a discounted price from the usual $240 to $199, but you're getting 2 extra months as well. So 14 months for that discounted rate. You get unlimited access to everything we have at the website, including the articles, including the best bets, the bet splits, 24/7 video, and all of our betting guides that come out, which of course has the NFL betting guide this summer that is our best and craziest, just jam-packed with information filled guide we do. So VSiN.com/subscribe. Check it out today.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. No NBA postseason action today. We'll get back to it with a doubleheader coming up tomorrow. A couple of game 6s on deck. But with that, I know the NBA draft lottery, obviously just recently having been top of mind for everybody. Adam Silver was recently speaking about the potential lottery changes. And I was curious on your opinion on the early 3-2-1 proposal, what people should know about it at this point, and all of that that's going on looking ahead to the future.
Yeah, I mean, the new lottery format obviously is not going to affect us this year, so we have to worry about it next year. I think just really the interesting aspect of it is overall the regression, or excuse me, the relegation zone of the top 3 or bottom 3 teams when it comes to record. I don't really love it. I mean, you're talking about 3 teams that are going to be sitting there. Let's say you get an Indiana Pacers type group that was just trashed with injury, including their best player in Game 7 of the NBA Finals not being able to play because of a torn Achilles and subsequently being forced to be one of the bottom teams. Those types of teams might get punished for something that they're not really actively doing. So that's going to be a small problem, I think, moving forward. And the fact that those bottom 3 teams will not have will have near equal odds of winning the lottery than teams that are floating right before that 10th seed play-in range. So I think you do kind of open the door for, hey, if I'm the Warriors and I'm sitting there just on the outside of the play-in, do I really make the push to get in? Because if I don't make it in, guess what? I'm going to have the same odds as the bottom 3 teams at making this selection. So why would I just sit there? So I don't really love it, but they're only going to do it temporarily. We'll see what happens after, I think it's 2 seasons, and then move on from there.
So, you've been deep diving into the NBA for a lot longer than I have. And general curiosity, do you feel like this is, at least to an extent, a bit of an overreaction to what we have seen this year specifically? Or is this something that is really becoming a systemic problem in the league?
I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I mean, you said it was it actually already this Monday? Wow. This last Monday after the lottery was finalized. This is the first time in 7 drafts that we've had the team with the worst record win the first overall pick. Yep. This is the first time for some of these bad actors. We talked about the Jazz moving up the lottery for the first time and whatnot. We've seen teams that are floating around in that 10 range move up all the time. So, just last year, we saw a 1% chance team in the Dallas Mavericks get it. So I think that the draft lottery, in the way that they reconfigured it, which is splitting the odds amongst the bottom 3 teams the way that they had previously, had worked more than people were letting on. But either way, we're here. We'll see what it works out. And this draft is going to be pretty good. From a betting standpoint, I can't wait for more of these options to get hung up. Because
do we have any more, or is it just first, second, third right now?
FanDuel, so there's 2 things I wanted to update here. First off, FanDuel has removed picks 2 and 3.
Oh.
MGM has them. So if you want to keep picking around at some of these odds, you can go to MGM and find odds for the 2nd and 3rd overall selections in the NBA draft. The other thing that I wanted to point out, because we've talked about this a couple of times, but I feel somewhat strongly about this. I don't think AJ Debonsa has the lead on the pack that people think he does. And the market continues to head in that direction. The last time we talked about this, he was a $5 favorite. Then the day after, it went down to minus 450. Today, he is now minus 350 to go with the first overall selection. Darren Peterson is 310. I would take Darren Peterson at anything better than what we're at right now. Anything other than picks, essentially, like minus 110.
And if you're getting plus money on Darren Peterson, take it.
I would, because I think he is the best prospect in this draft. I think that there is, he's been at the top for a long time. I would highly recommend go to YouTube right now and check out Hardwood Handicappers, the podcast, because Zach actually had a great guest the other day talking about this from the perspective of betting and from a general manager. But Ryan McDonough, former Suns GM, was on with him, and he asked him about a lot of different dynamics, including how do NBA teams actually view a guy like Peterson where there was these issues. But as McDonough told him in the podcast, look, we give him an opportunity. We talk to them, we find out. I think so much of the way the market is shaped is by social media and media for the most part, just being down on Peterson when the reality is he might just be the best player in this draft. So I think we're going to continue to see it head in this direction. So if you've got something on DeBonce at plus prices, I would take a piece right now of Peterson, because I think we're going to get to a point where we're like minus 110 or even Peterson being favored at one point to go with the first overall selection. And the other one, and we'll get the best bets as well. But yeah, DeBonce at 25-1 to go third overall, I think is definitely worth looking, as we discussed yesterday. And a couple of names that are just worth pointing out. Zach and I talked about this on the podcast today. Once these markets come out in terms of top 10 selections, over-under picks, things like that, you're going to want to jump on him, I think, relatively quickly. We've talked a lot about your guy Flemings, the fact that maybe he's going to slip in this draft potentially. That's something to look at. I also think two names you want to keep an eye on that could potentially move up. We talked about Yaxel Landenborg yesterday. That's going to be a name that's worth mentioning. I think the other that is definitely worth pointing out here, Ade Mara out of Michigan. He had a really good combine, a lot of good footage on him as well. If you Arvydas Sabonis, I believe, is the way you pronounce his first name, but Domantas Sabonis' father is the comp, and you look at him, he's 7'3", super athletic, can move really well around the rim. I think there's going to be a desire when you see the impact of a guy like Victor Wembanyama and others at center. If you can get an athletic guy who can move with the ball, who can do what he does. Mara right now is projected to go to the Hornets in some mock drafts, but I would say that is a name that I'm very much looking forward for an over-under to play under, because I think Mara is going to be closer to a top 10 pick than we think right now.
It's a great reminder again, though, as you said, make sure you check out Hardwood Handicappers wherever you get your podcast. For those of you that were watching on YouTube TV, we had that QR code up for a little while, but you can find it wherever you get your podcast. And Zach, as we get closer to the draft as well, and those markets do become available, he'll have articles up at vsin.com as a part of that conversation. We do have another MLB game that's set to get underway here in the next 10 minutes or so. So wanted to get your opinion on it. Cardinals and A's going head-to-head. The Athletics minus 122 home favorites with Jacob Lopez going. Michael McGreevy on the other side to start, high total, as we tend to see in that ballpark, sitting at 10.
Yes, with all of these pitchers who hate pitching in it as well, including the Athletics' own guys who absolutely.
Yeah. They have not been shy about talking about that.
Yeah, they adore it, right? No, so look, so far for Lopez, it has not gone well for him getting these starts. 8 appearances, 7 starts, 35 1/3. The command has been a really big issue for Lopez. So if the Cardinals can be a little patient here, they're probably going to find themselves on base. 6.11 ERA, 6.50 fielding independent. The xFIP is at 5.95. Again, the expected ERA kind of tied into some of the contact numbers. So you actually see when you look at a guy like Lopez, you're like, well, his expected ERA is under 4. It's because he doesn't give up a ton of hard contact, but when you walk guys at the rate that you do, when you don't strike them out at the rate that you do, you're going to put yourself in position to get absolutely blasted at times, especially in those starts that you will inevitably give up some hard contact. So Lopez at this point, not really a guy that I think worth backing here. And on the flip side of that, you get a guy like McGreevy who's pretty interesting. It's almost like the inverse of what we're looking at, because McGreevy is a solid ground ball guy that does tend up to that tends to give up some hard contact. You know, his hard contact rate's a little bit higher than Lopez. Barrel rate's relatively high at 10%. And yet Stormy keeps it down on the ground, allows his defense to work, doesn't really get taken deep out of the park either when you look at some of the issues that he's had. And the command is very strong for a guy that doesn't generate a ton of swings and misses. So right now you're looking at like minus 122 for the Athletics or thereabouts. That's courtesy of DraftKings. I'd be a little wary of laying a price like that. So I would lean a little bit toward McGreevy and the Cardinals here. I think being able to potentially get this done. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But I do think that I would rather be on that side so far if you're looking at it.
Another game I wanted to get your opinion on, and it's not until a little bit later on in the day, but Cubs and Braves as this series rolls on. We saw Atlanta with the win yesterday. now the first team in Major League Baseball to reach the 30-win threshold. Best record in the league right now. Chris Sale going against Ben Brown. Braves minus 181 home favorites. But over this most recent 4-game win streak, by the way, 2 against the Dodgers and 2 against the Cubs, they've covered the run line in all of them. You're getting plus 119-ish on Braves run line today. How do you see it?
I mean, I think that this is probably the way you want to look. I mean, you're talking about looking at Atlanta here at home. It's also, you're not going to get a ton of Brown. He's got a ton of appearances, obviously, in relief. He started last time out against Texas. He gave you 4 innings against the Rangers, struck out 3. So even if you're handicapping it from that perspective, you're still looking at a bullpen game here for Chicago for the most part, one would assume. So if you like the Braves here, maybe wait until you can get to this bullpen a little bit later in game, whatnot. But you got to trust that Sale, given the way that he's been pitching, is going to be able to come in and at least give the Braves a fighting chance, even against a lineup like this. I mean, we know how good the Cubs are, but Sale's been absolutely fantastic since that start against the Angels, in which he gave up 6 earned runs, had a lot of issues with command in that start for whatever reason. Really has bounced back. Has only given up has only given up 2 or fewer earned runs in each of his starts, and really that's just the last time out. He's actually given up 1 or fewer in all the others since that outing against Anaheim. So hard to go against Sale. I guess the price, given the level of the lineup that you're facing, I think you'd balk at laying $180. Seems relatively well priced. And in those splits, too, I mean, I think you want a little bit more coming back on Chicago. I don't want plus 149. I think you can shop around for some tighter straddle and look for a better price on the Cubs if you do like them here.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have a bet on this game, but just looking at Atlanta, there's a way to get plus money on them. Maybe it's the -1, maybe it's the full run line 1.5, but alternate ways if you do believe in them at home tonight. And about Chris Sale, he's been going really deep in these games, too. Full 7 innings, 3 of the last 4 starts.
One note, going back to our conversation about the National Football League and the schedule, as our managing editor checks in, but a reminder as well that we were talking about the Christmas schedule. 5 of the 6 teams that play on Christmas also play on or around Thanksgiving. So got to mention that, too, when we talk about maybe the changes that Circa might implement that Palm alluded to when he was with our guys on By the Book.
Yep, and we'll have Mike Palm on the program tomorrow, full half an hour, so we can get maybe a little bit more of the lowdown, a tease ahead to the full reveal that he will have on Follow the Money coming up in short order. We got to step aside here on Money Moves. When we come back, we're going to kick off hour 2 headed behind the counter. Dwayne Colucci of the Resort at Summerlin Race and Sportsbook going to stop by. Excited for that. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.